Janet, thank you so much for joining the author's table this morning. We got through that little obstacle, so that's wonderful.
I appreciate your contacting me.
Well, of course, absolutely. Janet, in one word, what describes you?
One word,
One word.
uh, joy.
Joy. Very good.
That's
That.
my favorite word.
Oh, excellent. Well, I think that's a nice word, and I think that's what everybody needs. You know, joy, especially in this day and age.
Well, like my partner says, if you wake up on the right side of the grass, you have joy for the day.
That's right. And it also depends on where you're going too, right?
Yes,
From your professional experience, Janet, in teaching K through 12,
yes.
do you feel this was your motivation to become a writer and then become an author?
Well, I've written ever since I was in high school. I started writing just poetry and essays, things that I wanted to express myself.
Sure.
But as a teacher, I became very motivated because I had all these stories in my head that I wanted to get out.
That's right.
And one of the biggest reasons was in the first book that I wrote was because I saw so many teachers who needed help, who needed mentoring, who struggled and just didn't know what
Mm-hmm.
to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
When I read that new teachers, um, drop out after 3 to 5 years because they don't have any support. They don't have mentoring. They didn't learn how to
Mm-hmm.
manage a classroom. They learned their skill in math or English or science or whatever it was, but they didn't know how to connect with the students individually.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why after I retired, I decided I was going to write a mentoring book. And I
Nice.
just had to get it out there. I felt very motivated about it.
Now, do you feel like the colleges and stuff they're not prepping like future teachers the way they should be, or is it just something individually they need to reach out or is it a
Well,
combination?
I think a lot of teachers decide to be a teacher because they love whatever their subject matter is. The other half of the teachers, I think, really care about kids and really want to do what they need to do. But
Mm-hmm.
in all of and I really don't know what they're doing in colleges now, but they need a class where it says, this is how you set up your classroom. This is how you motivate students. This is how you connect. This is how you talk with parents.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what my first book was all about, was every chapter was how to help a teacher get going and do what they need to do.
Yes, it's almost like you're right though. It's almost like they need a class for like the fundamentals of teaching,
Yes,
because the passion can get in the way of really the work that needs
that's
to
right.
be done, and that makes sense. I think in a lot of fields, you
I
know.
think that's true. Yes.
Yes. Um, Now, what were some of your obstacles, Janet, you faced while starting to put your material together for your book?
Um, I suppose it was wondering if I could write that well, wondering if I
Oh,
could be an author, wondering how to publish, wondering
sure.
what to do. I didn't have any guidance for that.
S-
I just felt very inspired to do it. So I just knew had to do it.
Yeah, so I think a lot of writers, they know what they want to write about, and once they start putting the book together, and then the real work begins.
Yes.
You know,
Well, I usually break the rules. I've always been a kind of a rule breaker,
not
but
you, Janet.
I decide, there you go. That's the rule breaker. I decided I wanted to, they always say, as an English teacher, it's always show, don't tell.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want it to be a textbook. I wanted it to be a dialogue showing how you connect with students, how you connect with parents, how you connect with your colleagues. So I wanted to really show from very personal experience and from my actually remembering all these scenarios of working with educators and students and parents. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, okay, I'm just going to present the dialogue to them. And that's how
Nice.
I did in most of the chapters.
Oh, very good. Yes. Now, when you completed your first book, did you already have in mind that you wanted to be a self-publisher, or did you do a lot of research on a publisher?
Well, I looked at a lot of author sites on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought about sending it in, but when I found out that it's 9 to 12 months before you might even hear from somebody, and then you might get a no or not even hear back.
Oh boy.
And I thought, what the heck? I'm just going to go ahead.
Yeah.
And I started with there were two other people and I who started a writing group together.
Hmm.
And they were very motivating to me. And I just started writing scenario after scenario. And that's where um, I decided I really want to get it out there. I'm not, I'm not an author who wants to get rich and famous. I just had these stories in my head that I wanted to get out there and I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to do it quickly.
Yes. And there's
So
some.
self-publishing seemed to be the way to go.
Yeah, and I think too with self-publishing, you have that control.
Yes,
And plus, all the profits and everything go to you, and just the fact that you could even change something in your book and not go through that whole process of having a publisher and that
yes,
whole. So yeah, to have that complete control, I think, is a huge thing for an author.
yes, it is. And what I read a lot of was in legal contracts with publishers that they had the control.
Mm-hmm.
And if they wanted to change the title, if they wanted to change the cover, if they wanted to change something in the book or throw something out, I thought, no, that's not how I want to
Yeah.
go, how I
Right.
want to do it.
Yes. Yeah. Now let's talk about Liam,
Oh,
the
yes,
the boy who saw the world upside down, and this is a true story.
this is a true story. Can I show this
Of
book?
of course,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yes. Does that show well?
Just a little higher. Perfect. Nice.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yes,
It, it,
I, this is very close to my heart.
yes. Yes. Talk about Liam. I think that's a very interesting story too.
Um, I had this student many years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and the story was always in my head, and I felt like I had to get it out there, but I needed his permission.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried for a long time to find him, and I couldn't. And then one day I just said, I'm going to see what I can do. So I got online and I found one of these sites that you pay to search for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, if I can find him, this will be worth it. So I looked him up and um, there were so many of his names. Liam is not his real name. And so I looked up his real name and I found several phone numbers. One of them kind of clicked because it had his full name. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought, okay. So I wrote down the phone numbers. I just started calling. And finally, after the fifth or sixth call, he said, and the kids always call me Mrs. B. He said,
Mrs. B.
Mrs. B, is that you? And I just started crying. I
Yeah.
thought, oh my gosh, I found him. And we had a wonderful conversation. In fact, Skyped for 3 hours,
Nice.
finding out all about him. And he said, if my story will bring hope, let's do this. So I
Absolutely.
really appreciated it.
Once you were talking with them and so on, so what is the story of Liam?
He came to me in eighth grade,
Mm-hmm.
and I was teaching in a private school. His parents brought him because they were tired of his being bullied.
Mm.
And he had been considered severely mentally retarded. Back then, that was the terminology
Mm-hmm.
they used, from kindergarten through seventh grade. And in fact, had never had anybody really look into his situation to see what was
Mm-hmm.
going on with him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had him for a couple of weeks and I thought, wait a minute, this kid is not mentally retarded. This kid is bright.
Mm-hmm.
But he had been so marginalized that he had withdrawn
Yes.
from from teachers, from students, and I thought I'm not a special education teacher. I didn't know what to do, but I thought I have to find out what to do with this student. And that's what I wrote the book about. How and it's all it reads like a story, like a novel. It's not a book about what to do.
Right.
It's a book with a, a book about how I struggled. And we had kind of a parallel story in that I was struggling and he was struggling, and I had to find a way to connect.
It was meant to be, though.
Yes, I believe
Yeah,
so. And that's how his parents felt also.
sure.
They,
You think about the not just Liam though, but so many children or even adults too that are not embraced. They're put to the side, and
that's exactly right.
and if you embrace that and encourage them, I mean, you can see them blossom in what you did with
Yes.
Liam. I mean, that's what they needed. Yeah.
Well, Liam changed my life. This story changed my life as a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
because what I realized was that you have to see every individual student, connect with them, and find their potential.
Right.
And I truly believe, and that's my passion, is that it is a teacher's job to really look inside a student and see who they are and see where they can go. Because and I had a lot of teachers as I was teaching say, "Oh, that's not true," because I always said every child has a genius,
Yeah, that's
and
right.
I truly believe that.
That's right. The child is there for a reason for you to teach them.
Yes,
No matter who they are or what background, they're there to learn. And
yes.
and if you can help push that, I mean, the sky's the limit for them, and for
Well,
you too as the teacher.
and that is, I want to hold this book up that I
Sure.
was talking about a while ago. Can you see that
Yes.
okay?
Yes. Thank you.
The point is, it is your job as a teacher to
Yeah.
connect with every single student and find out where they can go in their lives.
That's right.
And that's my passion.
And you need to go back to teaching.
Well, I miss my students. I
Oh yeah.
miss doing it. My heart aches for teachers nowadays. I think there is so much thrust upon them that it really
Mm-hmm.
truly is a very, very difficult job. Um, and in the book of Liam, uh, I was not very accepted by the administration in what I was doing, and so I don't know how much to tell about this story about Liam, because
No.
I'd love for people to read it.
Yes. But I think though I can hear your passion too, not just as the teacher, but also helping someone that was really dire need of some type of attention.
Yes, and I'm still that way. I still run across people who I I just want to help them even now, even as a retired teacher. But those the stories in as an author, those stories in my head, whether or not I hope someone who reads the book and enjoys it, but I feel like I need to get all this out.
That's right. Yeah. But it's a motivational book too. I mean,
I
what?
hope so.
Yeah. I mean, you think about where well, you came from and where he came from, and so it was meant to be for you two to be together and then grow from that.
Yes, and I am very grateful.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, see, God works in mysterious ways, so there was a reason for that.
Yeah, I don't believe in coincidence. I think things come together when they're supposed to.
That's right. Absolutely. So now you just showed your book though, but you that's the companion book to Liam.
Yes.
Now it's Connect for Classroom Success. Can you talk a little bit more about what that book really is, Janet, please?
Well, I have in the table of contents, I wrote it so that anybody could pick this up, a teacher, an administrator, a substitute teacher. And what I wanted teachers to know is whatever you're struggling with, look in the table of contents and read that chapter. And so they can read it straight through, or they can look for what they need. And I just have a passion for connecting with everybody who's on your team, and it's supposed to be a team.
Right.
Whenever it came up, I got trouble one time for this, where it's boss's day.
Ah,
It's boss is a Dutch word for master of slaves. And I thought, I'm not a slave and you're not my master. So,
Oh, jeez.
I thought I never celebrated that, but I would send a letter of gratitude to whoever it was. But I felt like you need to learn how to work with your administrator.
Hmm.
I wanted to call that chapter The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, but I decided that wasn't very politically correct. So I changed
Yeah.
it. And what I wanted teachers to understand was it's a very difficult job. The administrator is the middle person. And I wanted teachers to understand.
Hmm.
And I also wanted administrators to read it because I have what I considered an excellent administrator, a sort of regular, normal administrator, and some pretty lousy ones. So I wanted that to happen, and I wanted teachers to really um, apply their skill or learn how to have a skill with working with administrators. And the other end of it was the two most important people in a school are the secretaries and the custodians,
Hmm.
and they need to be considered part of that team. The other thing was about parenting is that I considered it my job to contact every parent within the first 3 weeks, whether the students were doing well or not doing well. But you need to connect with the team
That's
members,
right.
and everybody in the school district is a team member, including school board. I invited, every time I went to a school board meeting, I invited school board members to come drop in anytime. Do you know that in my 35 years, I never had a school board member come to my classroom? And that was disappointing to me.
Oh, sure. You know,
So,
communication is so key.
absolutely. And that's what the word connect is the word.
Hmm.
Connect with every team member and know that you're all on the team.
That's right.
So, and
Absolutely right.
yeah, and the other part is reading. The other passion in my education is if students don't know how to read excellently, they need to learn how to do that, and there is a way to do it. And I have 2 chapters about that. There's a program called Read Right, meaning RIGHT, reading excellently. And that program can teach anyone how to read as well as they can speak, no matter what, no matter if it's dyslexia, whatever. So I'm passionate about that. Whenever I run across someone that I can explain that to, I do that. I'll never give it up.
That's wonderful because you shouldn't, because that is a passion that you have, and you should spread it out as much as you can. You know,
Yes, well, it's always the cart before the horse. You know, if I'm a science teacher and I say, read chapter 3, we're going to have a test at the end of the week. Well, if you can't read, what's the point?
that's correct. Absolutely right. Yeah,
So put the horse before the cart, teach how to read excellently first, then the students can go anywhere.
that's right. See, we need to put you back in the that is awesome, Janet. That's fantastic. Now, you also wrote a romance novel based on your parents'
Yes,
love for each other during World War II called Rainbow of Promise.
yes. Can you
That
see that okay?
yes, I can. Thank you.
Yes.
That is awesome. That is so
Um,
wonderful.
and that was, it was a joy to write.
Oh, sure.
Um, my mother and dad were quite a pair. They had good chemistry. And my mother was a real storyteller. She would have been a great teacher, but she didn't have the opportunity. You know, being a child of the Depression, she was
Mm-hmm.
lucky to even go to high school.
Mm-hmm.
But she always told me stories, and my dad would tell me stories. And I thought, I just got to get this out there, even if it's just a family legacy.
That's right.
So
See, there's
I,
your inspiration right there.
yes, that's true.
Yes.
My mother even visited me when I was teaching, and I would just let her take over the classroom, and the kids loved her.
Oh,
She
that
would tell stories. She would tell travel stories.
now that
Uh,
had to have been so heartwarming too, though, to see your mom there. You know,
yes,
I mean that's wonderful. Yeah, I think too. You know, putting like when you were putting the book together, like what was going through your mind with just all that information of your parents and so what was your you know that had been very heartfelt. I mean, it's just
oh
very connected.
yes, very. My dad was my idol.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he was very inspirational to me.
Mm-hmm.
He had a sensitivity that He knew when I was hurting. He knew when I needed something. He was always very perceptive about. I was one of three sisters, and I was considered, oh, Janet, you're so sensitive. Um, that was from my
From your,
sisters, but
mm-hmm.
my mother always said, the world isn't ready for you yet. I think you came from a different planet.
Oh,
But she'd say that in a complimentary way and
yeah.
make me feel like valued. And my dad was tuned into me. I appreciated that. I admired him so much that I wanted to get that out there.
Oh, sure.
And we moved until I was a senior in high school, we moved 52 times. And it was an average of every 8 months. But my parents were such a team. My dad built grain elevators, cement plants, all kind of slip form construction. We moved all over the United States. And I always admired them as a team. Um, my mother didn't mind. She didn't care about having material things. We lived in rentals, and she was always ready to go on to the next place. My mother was an inspiration of pull yourself up by your bootstraps, to always take the high road.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents knew how to have fun. They were just quite a team, and I just felt compelled to write their story, their love story.
That is wonderful. So, what has been your response on that book, Janet?
I've had excellent response on it. Um, I I wish people would write more reviews just to propel the book out there more. But at the same time, I'm just thrilled when somebody says, "What a beautiful story."
Absolutely,
So
absolutely. That's especially when it's your own family. You're writing on your own family,
yes,
and that's really something.
yeah. It starts with my parents meeting uh, right during World War II, and then it finishes with my dad coming home from Europe.
Nice.
So somebody wrote a review and said, "Well, there was no surprise there." And I said, "Well, of course there's not, because I'm writing the book." And I said it was about my parents. So
It's like, don't mess with me. Oh man. Now was your dad in the army then?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Do you know which division he was in?
Uh, oh
Like,
my goodness, I know that I can't off the top of my head say
okay,
what battalion he was in, but
but he was on the front lines though.
he
Oh,
was not on the front lines because he was they took him in. They knew he was a builder, and he started off in Enid, Oklahoma, building barracks for they were putting in a new Air Force Academy there at Enid, Oklahoma.
oh,
And he started building barracks. And when they found out that he was really good at that, they transferred him here and there and everywhere to build.
okay.
Well, then it finally came down toward the right before the war. Well, I should say right before Hitler. My dad was in Europe when Hitler was supposedly committing suicide and dying and all
Yeah.
that.
So that
I
was
never believed that. I think
yeah.
he got away, but
So that was
my
in
dad,
45.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. So he was there at the end, kind of cleaning up as they went through.
Sure.
So fortunately, he was not on the front lines.
It's sort of like what the Seabees were doing.
Oh, oh, and I don't know about the CBs. I don't know much about them. So is that what they were cleaning up at the end?
Well,
Yeah.
they would build a lot of the infrastructure for like the aircraft and
Oh,
they were a lot of the construction and
yeah.
that's something you can look into the Seabees and
Oh, I will do
that's a
that.
huge thing
Yeah.
that they did. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So my dad, the other thing that propelled me was that my dad kept a journal,
Oh,
a
nice.
diary of his trip when he left for Europe. He kept that diary all the way through, and none of us knew about it till after he passed. We found his diary,
Oh my
and I
gosh.
felt also compelled to include that in the book.
Excellent.
So
Excellent. And you still have that diary.
yes, I do. His handwritten pencil on a tablet paper.
See
Yeah.
that alone is so. I mean, words can't even describe that. I mean, actually having the actual piece in your hands.
Yes, it's wonderful.
Oh yes,
Here, and I do have real pictures in the book,
excellent,
photographs of my mother and dad and family.
excellent.
So I don't know if you can see that. And there's my
Yes,
dad's picture.
that's fantastic.
And
See
There's
that
a,
I can see the smile on your face. That's wonderful. Yeah.
and there's a picture of my mother too.
Oh, so pretty. Oh yeah. That's
This on the
wonderful.
back of the back cover is a picture of it's and there's a part of the story is my dad giving my mom this robe that I still have hanging in my closet.
Oh, how awesome. That is awesome. That is fantastic. That's wonderful. Now, let's talk about. Now, this is interesting. Let's talk about Hector and Heloise
Yes,
and in Paris, and that's internet, and then the links are included too in that one.
yes, there are links in the back where children can or anybody can go and they can take virtual tours of the Louvre and they look up things about art. It's as much a fun book as it is educational for
Absolutely.
children to get engaged in art.
Now, how did you get involved with like the illustrations are wonderful, and and
Yes,
and then also that not it's not just a book though, but it's so cool that you linked it to other things. So how did you come about doing that? That's pretty neat.
um, my uncle was head of the art department at Walla Walla University, and we were very close. He was my mentor when it came to art. I knew nothing about art really. And he said, I want you to write a book and I'm going to illustrate it.
Oh,
And we'll start with the Louvre so that we can teach kids about all the great museums in the world. So he wanted to start with the Louvre. And so I was a little intimidated about it because I didn't know enough about art. And he
hmm
said, I'll do the art, you write the story. So what happened was when I started thinking about this and how to do it, he passed suddenly of heart attack.
hmm.
And he was a woodcut artist. So this is what started with. He loved Albrecht Dürer that was one of his favorite artists. And there's a Albrecht Dürer was so into um, um, doing art with animals. And so my uncle did this woodcut of Albrecht Dürer holding a hedgehog.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
still have that hanging on my wall, and that's a picture of it. Can you see that okay?
Yes, that is excellent.
Yes. He was actually more well known outside of the United States than inside the United States, but I admired him tremendously, and he was a wonderful person.
Hmm
So after he passed, my best friend, Barb Rubel, said, I'll do the illustrations for you. And so she's the one who did all of these beautiful, they're just such fun.
Oh yes, yes.
And so I wrote the story, and then she took the story and illustrated all the way through. So I was really so grateful to her for that. So it has lots of really fun
That is awesome. Now,
pictures.
now from the book now, Janet, how did you like connect like the links to like actual like museums and stuff? How does that work?
Well, I spent a lot of time reading about the Louvre, looking at the history of the Louvre, looking. One of the difficult parts was I wanted to include more of the pictures in the book,
Mm-hmm.
but if I hadn't taken pictures, say of the Mona Lisa myself, then I couldn't put those in the book
Okay.
without knowing
Right.
who the picture was photograph was taken. So um, what I found, and it's difficult because I've been to the Louvre a couple of times, and it's a lot of I don't know, bacchanalian, warring, pillaging, lots of huge paintings and wonderful little paintings about things that I really couldn't put in a
Yeah.
children's book. But then I did find some,
mm-hmm.
and then I found that there is actually videos where children can tune in and just take a tour through the Louvre that's available for children.
That's actually
So
an awesome approach though for not just learning about your book though, but also expanding that, and that's what makes it very unique.
Yes, and it's on Kindle. So if you read it on a Kindle, then you can just click very easily
Sure.
into children following those links. Otherwise, if not, then you just have to put the link in.
Yes.
But it's a very educational tour for kids. I also included a glossary because there are all kinds of terms that I wanted the kids to be able to look up when they're reading this or when they're listening to the
That's
story.
awesome. That's wonderful.
So I wanted it to be an educational book, and that's what my uncle wanted. My uncle Ken wanted it to be educational. This is a picture of there's a picture of the illustrator. She lives in Gig Harbor, Washington.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Yes,
And,
and
and that's
I
you.
have I have a hedgehog
Yeah, I
collection
see.
that I have hedgehogs all over my house. Little hedgehogs.
Well, you're keeping the family close, right?
Yeah. And this one actually won a couple of awards. This is a Firebird Award,
Nice.
and another one was
Janet, excuse me,
a bookshelf.
was that watercolor?
Yes, it's watercolor.
Yes, nice. Excellent.
Yes. So it was just it was a very fun book.
Oh, absolutely. I think you that's probably something you learned a great deal on too, isn't it? Just
Oh,
just
very much.
just that whole thing you did there. I mean, that's a wonderful.
Well, and the history of the Louvre is
Oh yeah.
amazing.
Hmm.
I spent hours and hours and hours just finding out about the building and the architecture and all of that.
Oh sure, absolutely. Now, when you completed your books, how did you create your ebooks? Also, now were they difficult to do the ebooks?
Um, if it's all right that I mention who did the formatting for me,
Well, of course,
yes,
absolutely.
Emily Tippett's. It's emtippetts books.com.
Okay.
She she has a wonderful team, and I recommend her to every other self-publishing person I want. I'm not a techie person. I didn't want to learn how to format on Amazon, how to do all this stuff. So when I told them I wanted it to be published as a paperback, or actually, I'd like to have this as a hardback, but you have to have at least 75 pages to do a hardback.
Hmm.
But anyway, they did the formatting for me, and they put it on Amazon for me in the paperback, ebook. They did all of that for me.
Nice.
So
So,
I highly recommend her.
so are you saying you have a team?
Well, Emily Tippett has a team,
Yes.
and she's quite amazing. In fact, one of her team who usually did book covers, and they do the actually, I have a friend from high school who lives around the corner from me now, and he's the one who helped me with all my book covers. He's a wonderful artistic photographer. And when I came up with what I wanted, and they helped you decide on the font, make
Sure.
it all nice for you.
Yeah.
Um, one of her team was on a pregnancy leave, and she said, "Oh, I'll do it for you." And she did it for me herself, putting it all
Wonderful.
together.
Wonderful.
So it's a wonderful team to work with. They're wonderful communicators. I have and they are relatively inexpensive compared to everybody else I looked at.
That's a big advantage.
It very much.
Absolutely. Now,
So they've
yeah,
done all four of my books.
wonderful. Now, what was your biggest challenge? Now putting your books together, what was your biggest hurdle that you?
Well, for the Rainbow of Promise, I had to do a timeline because I had this certain number of years that I was writing about. And I had to do a timeline in order to make sure I was getting it
Hmm.
correct and making it doable.
Yes. Yes.
So
So,
timelines really helped on that.
okay. Now, like, were any of your books like a difficult task, or was it pretty? Because you pretty
Oh,
much knew what you.
well, I knew what I wanted to do, but I'm really big on editing.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Uh, I,
Yes.
I, if I read, and what bothers me is the big five publishers, or now I guess it's the big four. I'm shocked at the number of errors in a book. And when I pick up a book, if I find five errors in the first chapter, I'm not going to read it. I think if you're not editing well, You got to do something about that. You need to care.
That's
And
right.
I think in the world of self-publishing, there are a lot of people who don't know what they don't know. And so when editing, to me, it's like going over it 100 times, over and over and over. And as I was doing this, I learned a whole lot
Hmm.
about uh, words to take out, things that weren't necessary. Don't think everything you do is perfect and beautiful, and
That's
oh, everybody will love this. You got to be your own critic.
that's correct. Yes.
And
Yes.
I work with the women I started working with when I lived in Colorado, and now we're the one person, is an author, and she has done 2 books. We started out with nothing, but she and I have critique each other's work. I send her my
Hmm.
manuscript, she send me hers, and we have gotten so close over the last 10 years that she'll, we can be very open with each other and
Hmm.
not worry about it hurting our feelings.
Yes. Well,
I think when a writer starts writing, you own your work, and you've got to step back and be your own critic and
that's yes.
allow others to also. And so I have about 3 people. In fact, I have a neighbor who's blind, and I go over to her to read. And she's amazing at listening and critiquing, and she's become one of my best critiquers. Where she'll say, "Now wait a minute, cut what chocolate drove you," you know. So I really appreciate it
Oh,
when I have
absolutely.
that. And but otherwise, one of my ways I taught students when I was an English teacher, when you're writing, start at the end and go sentence by sentence backward so that you don't have what's in your head of what you're writing. You're just critiquing each sentence and finding your mistakes.
Hmm.
So that really, that's a good way to do it, a good way to edit.
Yeah. That's a. I would. That's a challenging thing to go backwards, isn't it?
Yes, it
Yes.
is. And it's very time consuming.
Yes. Yes. Man, I never thought of that. That
So
that
you have to, well, I believe if you're going to put your name on a book,
that
you
right.
need to have it right.
That's correct. Yes.
So good
Yeah,
editing is very important.
that's correct. Now,
And there are a lot of words that need to come out. There are a couple of words that I used over and over and over where I didn't realize I was doing it. And
hmm.
so what's good about a word program that I use is you can put the word in and it'll find that word for you everywhere throughout the manuscript. And so you know what to do with that, like delete, delete, delete.
Now, like when you were writing your books, did you just like just write, just continue writing, get the flow going,
Yes,
and then go back?
very much.
Okay.
When I believe when you're writing your rough draft, don't worry about anything.
Mm-hmm.
Just get it on the paper, and then you can go back many,
Yes.
many, many, many
Yes.
times. Things, but when I get in the zone, I'm in another world where I
Mm-hmm.
don't time. I don't know time. I don't know where I am. I'm in the zone, and I just
J-
am there,
just get
and
it
it
to
just
paper.
flows.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Now, are you currently writing on a poem book or anthology?
Uh, well, I have a whole book of poetry that I've written. Actually, I'm working on my second journal now of writing that, and I can't quite decide how I want to do it. Whether I want to include poetry in parts of an anthology of short stories. I love writing short stories too. Um, but I've kind of decided I want to do a series of maybe 4 or 5 where each small poetry book has a theme, like the dark side or
Oh,
the joy side or I don't know if I haven't decided yet.
Jana, you don't have a dark side, do you?
Pardon me?
You don't have a dark side, do you?
Oh, well, there have been times in my life when I did, and that's when I wrote
Oh.
uh, that poetry. But everybody goes through hard times.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that was when I was most inspired to express myself just for myself. But the other one is an anthology of essays and short stories, which I really do enjoy writing. And that's not really easier just because it's shorter.
No. No, that's absolutely right. You know, you're a very talented woman too. If you think about it, all
Well,
the
thank you.
well, you are, of course. You know, and you think about if you look back at what you've done. I mean, it's a huge accomplishment. Not just being a teacher, of course, so but what you've done in writing, and you're helping others too. And not too many people can do that.
Well, I appreciate that very much. I'm starting on a prequel of my Rainbow of Promise
Oh,
romance book. My Volga German grandparents came from Russia in 1912.
nice.
And so I'm doing a lot of research. I was just going to write kind of a fluffy story about my grandparents' love story. But as I got into it, I thought, oh my goodness, I've got to learn a lot more about what was going on in Russia, about World War One. So
Mm-hmm.
I've been spending a lot of time researching that to have a background.
And you started that already?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. So I'm going to have to get you back on the program then. When you're,
Well, I'd love for you to do that.
oh yeah.
I ran across in doing my research, I was reading historical novels, and the author's name is Marina Osipova.
Mm,
She is Russian, and we connected
awesome.
online, and we're determined to meet each other because she's living in Texas right now. We're determined to meet each other, and she has been a huge help to me. It's wonderful to make a connection for someone who has the real background of
That's
what I'm
right.
doing, and I'm so appreciative of her, and she's helping me a great deal.
Oh, fantastic. Absolutely. If you can use that,
Oh, we're running up against the time
no,
limit.
but I think that's fantastic. And um, now, do you have any upcoming events, Janet?
um, I'm looking for events.
Okay.
The I've found some. A lot of the events are so very expensive. Um, Last October, Barb Rubel, the illustrator for Hector and Heloise, she came down here from Washington State and brought all of her artwork, and we were at an arts and crafts fair, and we had a tent where she had all of her artwork up for sale, and I had all my books for sale, and it was just marvelous and so much fun.
Oh yeah.
But it was very expensive to rent a tent, and the entry fee was expensive. So I've been looking at events, and I'm just looking for more local things.
Sure.
I did a book reading and signing at one of the bookstores here locally,
Nice.
and I really enjoy doing that. I just did that a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, excellent. Um, now, would you like to provide your website and where people can go and purchase your books and learn more about you?
Well, I'm in a conundrum about that. I don't have a website, and I don't know how important it is. Everybody says it's very important. Um, and I just don't know whether I should jump into that or not, or just enjoy writing.
Well, it's a good way for people to reach out to you and learn about you and about your books, and plus too, then you know if they want to buy your books, they go directly to your website and then you can have either someone fulfill that for you and send it to them, or you can do it yourself.
Well, I would love to do that. So, do you have a recommendation for
Yeah.
if I know a lot of people offer to do a website, but it's so very expensive. I'm a retired teacher on a pension.
Oh.
So when people say, "Oh, $3,000 or $4,000, they're going to start a website," right away I calculate how many books do I need to sell to cover that.
No, no. It's one of them is called Wix. Wix, Wix.
Wix.
Yes, it's www.wix.com,
Okay.
and they have tons of themes that you can use, and you can create it all yourself or have someone do it for you.
Okay.
Where it doesn't cost you anything.
Oh, really?
Yes,
I'll look into that. Thank you
yes,
very much. I just wrote that down.
of course, absolutely. And if you do need some help, just reach out to me. I'll be happy to help you.
Oh, thank you.
Of course, that's why I'm here.
You're
No,
very personable. I
well,
appreciate
well,
that.
of course, you're very welcome. And I think that we all need to help each other. You know, Not because of, well, if I help you, you have to help me. I do it because I want to.
Well, that's very nice.
Well, of course,
You
absolutely.
must be very passionate about what you're doing.
I am. I enjoy it. As a book author myself, and my stories of my books are from me growing up, and it's weird though when I look back at my past and my books, it was all connected. It was stuff that I was doing all along, and because I have two comedian quiz books, and I have one poetry book and one book on clouds. And if you think about it, we've been doing that our whole life. We look in the clouds and we say, "Oh yeah, that looks like a heart
Oh,
or something."
oh,
You
I
know,
do that all the time. I
yeah.
love that. I love your book.
Well, yeah. I mean, and it's stuff that you know I've been doing my whole life, and and that's something that I think is my passion. And like even my podcast here today, it's something that I didn't think, oh, I'm gonna be doing that someday. It just came to me and said, you know what? I'm an author too, and there's so many authors out there that could use or that need that little that little assistance.
Well, I appreciate it. May I ask where you're from?
I'm Florida. I'm from Florida.
Oh,
Well, originally from the Midwest by Chicago originally, but
oh,
I'm
oh, I thought Chicago. Yeah, but I'm
yeah.
going to read your books, and I will be glad to leave a review.
Well, thank you. Yeah,
Use
they're
use
on.
your real name.
Yeah, yeah. You could go to Amazon, type my
Right.
name, they'll come up.
Okay. Great.
Well, Janet, I thank you so much for being on the author's table today, and I wish you the very best. But please keep me in the loop.
I will certainly do that. I appreciate that, and thank you so much. You're really good at this.
Well, thank you. See, I'm a natural. Well, I thank you so much. That means a lot. And again, I thank you, Janet. And again, keep me in the loop, and I wish you the very best.
Oh, thank you so much. Best wishes to you.
Well, thank you, Janet. You have a wonderful day.
You too.
Thank you. Bye
Joy
bye.
to you.
Well, thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.